In this activity, we're going to create the Carton class. And this will give us a chance to practice the skills that we're learning in this module. And that is to be able to write a class and use it. So this is a programmer-defined data type. So what we're doing is we're really creating a new data type that we can create objects of and use the functionality that goes with it. We'll be working in the SRC folder. There's a main.cpp and a carton.h and a carton.cpp. This will be a class library. So we'll be putting the class declaration in carton.h and the class implementation in carton.cpp. First, start with the declaration. Our part one is to create the declaration for that class, and that includes the method declarations. And then part two is to implement them. And we're going to start with the getters, setters, constructors, and destructor. And you really need all of these before we can do much with an object in main. So we get these all added and the implementation of them. Some of these will be in line, like the destructor. Some of them will be in the carton.cpp file, like the setters. And so you'll have some of each, get some practice at both doing inline methods and methods that are in the carton.cpp file. And then you're going to move to main and create and use the cartons. Now that you have that much of the class written, you can test it. And so this has a list of things to do in main. Now, all of these instructions are in comments in main. So you can move through them here in main and just do each thing right after the comment. And that first one takes you a ways down here. And it's going to have you create objects, individual objects, and an array of objects. So you can get the practice at both writing and working with individual objects and writing and working with arrays of objects. So you're going to get to do both of those things. And then after you do those things in main, then you'll go back and add some more to the class. So part 4 has you add 2 more methods to the class, write data and write carton, and you'll put the declarations for those methods in the .h file, right inside the class declaration, and you'll put the implementation of it in the carton.cpp. And the write data just writes out the individual pieces, length, space, width, space, height, and a carriage return. And the write carton method actually writes a sentence about the carton. So 2 different ways to write a carton. And then once those are written and declared and implemented, then you'll use them in main. And here again, there'll be these 3 instructions here. Those same instructions will be listed in main itself. And so you can go to main and do those. Then there's one more method that we'll be adding to the carton class, and that is the volume method. And this one computes the volume of the object and returns it. So that's what this one does. And you're going to want to write the declaration, the implementation, and then use it in main. Notice that all of these are in the same part. Write it, declare it, implement it, and use it in main. And there you see 2 more things to do in main, and those will be comments in main as well. Then reading from the file. That's all we're going to do with the class, and plenty, right? And then we're going to go to reading from a file. So we've done this in lots of our activities, is can we read from a file and write to a file? And so we're going to do that with these, with the carton class that we have just created. So there's a file, cartons.txt. So you're going to create an array, read this data, and create an object for each of these, right? A carton object for each set of data, and then store it in an array. So that's what you do. You read it and store it in an array. And you pay attention so that you keep track of how many valid elements are in the array, and that you loop the correct amount of times, that you know how to manage if it's too long and manage if it's too short, how to work with both kinds of data. Then once you get that all in the array, right? And here's some, again, instructions to do in main. Then we'll be writing 2 files. And we're going to do 2 different files. One where we write data, the carton_data.txt, and we'll use the write data method to write the data out there. And we're just going to write it from the array out to the file. And then the other one is the Carton report, and we'll use the write Carton method to do that. And what this does then is it gives you the opportunity to create a class and then use it. And this, it outlines, lots of things to do along the way, so you can test the parts that you've done. And that's an important part of developing code, especially when it gets longer, is that you test it as you go. It's like you write it and then you try it out and make sure it works. And then you write it and then you try it out and make sure it works. When you're writing a class, actually, there's quite a bit you have to write before you can try it out, right? The constructors, the getters, the setters, and then you can try it out. Once you do that, here's another using it. Let's see. I got way back. Let me get back down there where part 8 was writing the files. Then you're all done. Then you want to validate your code. Now is when you can use the unit test to test your code and to make sure everything's working the way you expected. You've been testing it manually in main all this time, so hopefully it'll run really nicely right off the bat. And then when you're all done, zip up your source folder and submit it in Canvas. Now, because this is a try it out activity, some of the instructions are more detailed, and I've tried to add instructions on the things that are kind of newish. There really isn't anything new in this assignment. It's all things that we learned in the learning activities or that we've done in previous modules, but just some reminders of the things that are tricky to remember. And so the instructions are a little bit longer than they would be in a challenge activity because this is try it out, and we just want you to really try it out and to remember the details and to put them to use.